Many lives would have been lost if not for the heroic actions of the two Capitol Police officers.
President Trump addresses the nation after a gunman opens fire on congressmen, wounding a top Republican and 4 others, including the 2 officers who fought back. Good evening from Washington, D.C. Thank you to those of you joining us from around the world for news from a Catholic perspective. I'm Lauren Ashburn. We have team coverage, including Mark Irons at the White House, Jason Calvi on Capitol Hill, and we begin with Wyatt Goolsbee at the shooting scene in Alexandria, Virginia, just outside Washington, D.C. Good evening, Wyatt.
Good evening, Lauren. House Majority Whip Steve Scalise of Louisiana is in critical condition at a D.C. hospital tonight. He was practicing for a congressional baseball game, a bipartisan tradition. A friendly baseball practice among GOP lawmakers ends in gunfire.
All of a sudden we heard a shot, a very loud shot that everybody thought it sounded like a gun, and then boom, rapid succession after that. He had a rifle of some type, and it was obviously a large gauge rifle.
Witnesses say 51-year-old Congressman Steve Scalise was at second base when he was shot in the hip.
One of the noblest things I heard was Congressman Brett Guthrie, who's a surgeon from Cincinnati, rushed onto the field to attend to Scalise, to his wound. Again, a pretty brave thing, the kind of thing a medic would do in a war.
2 Capitol Hill officers were also shot. The officers, although injured, returned fire. Representative Joe Barton of Texas was there with his son Jack. He says they ducked for cover during the shooting.
The heroes are the police officers who attacked the shooter, and in doing so, quite probably saved many, many lives.
Witnesses near the park echo the same sentiments.
It was the Capitol Police that saved us all. If it wasn't for the Capitol Police, I would assume that everybody would have been killed.
Alexandria police confirmed the suspect, 66-year-old James Hodgkinson of Belleville, Illinois, is dead. They say the incident was a deliberate attack. A motive is not clear yet, but there are a few clues.
I did have an interaction with someone in the parking lot who asked me if the team practicing was a Democrat or a Republican team. I told him they were Republicans. He said, "Okay, thanks," turned around. I got in the car and left, found out that my Republican colleagues were targeted by an active shooter today.
The suspect reportedly had a history of lashing out at Republicans, and it doesn't help that reportedly he also volunteered for Bernie Sanders' campaign in terms of potentially coming up with a motivation that this could be politically motivated. Lauren?
What are you learning about the other victims, Wyatt?
Well, aside from the congressman himself as well as the 2 officers, we've learned that a congressional aide as well as a former staffer were also wounded in the incident. We've learned that former employee is also in critical condition. Lauren?
Just a horrific story. Wyatt Goolsbee reporting from the scene. Thank you, Wyatt. The shooting left the Capitol horrified and stunned. The House put their work on hold. Leaders from both parties are calling for unity. Our coverage continues with Capitol Hill correspondent Jason Calvi, who has been speaking to lawmakers. Good evening, Jason.
Good evening, Lauren. It's very unusual. The mood is very somber here today. This morning's shooting has brought lawmakers together. We saw Democrats patting Republicans on the back today. Tonight, lawmakers and the entire country are united in prayer.
Lord, surround our lawmakers with the shields of your protection and favor.
Lawmakers put aside politics today and gathered in prayer. The House canceled their votes, and leaders from both parties came to the floor in a sign of bipartisan unity.
Let us pray.
We are united. We are united in our shock. We are united in our anguish. An attack on one of us is an attack on all of us.
For this person to take this action was so cowardly, so cowardly.
It was a close call for Representative Mark Walker of North Carolina. The GOP team pitcher and a former pastor tells me he left practice just before the shooting today.
Had it not been for the Steve Scalise's Secret Service agent, there would probably be 15 to 20 members of Congress that would have lost their life this morning. The young man, the young woman, our agents ran and attacked the shooter.
Representative Walker led all of the members of the House in a prayer today as they met behind closed doors to get a briefing on the shooting. A Protestant minister told me there are a number of ministers here praying with congressional leaders, staff, and police officers. He urged me to ask all of you at home to do the same tonight. Lauren?
The Republicans were practicing for this very popular bipartisan congressional baseball game that's been here for a long time. It's Democrats versus Republican. Tell us about the game. Is it still on tomorrow?
It is, Lauren. I'm told that when lawmakers met behind closed doors today, they broke into a standing ovation when they heard that the game would still be on, a game for charity.
Jason Calvi reporting on Capitol Hill. Thank you, Jason. President Trump calls the shooting a brutal assault. He is asking all Americans to come together to pray for the recovery of the victims. Correspondent Mark Irons continues our team coverage from the White House. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening, Lauren. In a statement from the White House, President Trump says while the political parties may have their differences, it's worth remembering that everyone who serves in Washington is here because they love the United States. President Trump called Representative Scalise a very good friend and a patriot. Trump said he spoke with Scalise's chief of staff and his wife Jennifer to offer his full support, and the president had a very personal message for the House Majority Whip.
And Steve, I want you to know that you have the prayers not only of the entire city behind you, but of an entire nation and, frankly, the entire world. America is praying for you, and America is praying for all of the victims of this terrible shooting.
In his remarks, the president repeatedly praised the Capitol police officers and first responders who quickly mobilized at the softball field where the Republican baseball team was practicing, saying, quote, "Their sacrifice makes democracy possible."
Mark, I understand that the shooter labeled President Trump a traitor?
That's right. The deceased shooter, James T. Hodgkinson, also posted on his Facebook page back in March that Trump has destroyed our democracy and it's time to, quote, destroy him. One footnote from here at the White House, today is President Trump's 71st birthday. Lauren?
No cause for celebration, unfortunately, today. Correspondent Mark Irons at the White House. Bishop Michael Burbidge released a statement on the shooting inside his diocese. It reads in part, "Today I call on the faithful in the Diocese of Arlington and all people of goodwill to join me in prayer for Representative Steve Scalise and others who were wounded in this senseless attack."